Hello and welcome back to the Magic Mirror podcast. I'm your host, Khan, the Trinket Mage, and we got a newsworthy episode today. But first, I need to introduce my co-host, 33 Elk.
Hello.
No Snail this week. He's in Yugoslavia or something. He's doing something. So just the two of us this time. This episode is going to be about some news that came out of MagicCon Vegas, some of the announcements, rules changes, all of our thoughts on that, and then we're going to dedicate this episode to trying to get a bunch of questions from everybody. But first, we got to thank the sponsor, Card Castle. They let you easily sort your collection online. You can start digitally sorting your cards today by clicking the link in the description and signing up for free. You also get 1 free month of premium if you use our link. Thanks to Card Castle for sponsoring the video. All right, Elk, why don't you start us off with the rules change?
Yeah, so with Foundations, I believe, I'm not sure when the change goes into effect. I think it's with Foundations.
Yeah.
They will be removing the assigning of combat damage in the rules. So what does this mean? If you attack someone with your Colossal Dreadmaw currently, and they block with a 4/4 and a 2/2, you assign the 4/4 first and you say 4 damage here, and you put the 2/2 second and you say 2 damage here, 0 to you because, Trample wasn't lethal enough, or because Trample, didn't punch over the creatures. We move to combat damage, and then it resolves as the attacker declared. In the new rules, the attacker attacks and doesn't have to declare how their damage is going to work. It will just be assigned during the combat damage step, how you see fit. So if you say, for instance, put a combat trick on the 4/4 that's blocking the Colossal Dreadmaw, you can just assign all the damage to that instead of having the 2/2 in this situation soak it all up. Essentially making combat tricks on defense a little bit weaker. I think that's about it. It does nerf Mother of Runes.
Correct.
Quite substantially, but anyone who's played against that card is probably rejoicing and not despairing about it. I don't think this change is going to be that big.
No, it's pretty small.
People had a little bit of a harsh reaction to it. Most people, keep in mind, actually did have the proper lukewarm take, which is like, yeah, this makes Mother of Runes in defensive combat tricks a little bit better, but like, it's so much simpler.
A little bit worse, sorry.
Yeah, a little bit worse, my bad. But it does make it a little bit simpler. It does remove a tiny amount of skill, but the defender in Magic is already so favored in any combat exchange. So favored.
Yeah.
That this is not going to really do too much.
Yeah, pretty minor change. Honestly, I don't think it's going to affect too many players. Maybe if you're a limited grinder, this is something to think about, but outside of that, especially for EDH, it's probably not very relevant. Let's move on to the new sets that they announced. So Wizards have announced basically what the next couple of sets are going to be. And we have in February, Aether Drift, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, a 3-plane racing set. Where like the racetrack is going to go between planes.
Yep.
And then in April, we have Tarir Dragonstorm, back to Tarir. And then in, what's that, June? How do months work? In June, we have Final Fantasy. That's the 6th month. In June, we have Final Fantasy, which will be a full set. And I believe Final Fantasy is going to be standard legal, correct?
Yes. All Universes Beyond will be in all formats from now on.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about eventually.
We'll get to that. And then in August, we have Edge of Eternities, which is the space opera set.
Yes.
That's within the Magic universe. I have to say that now. And then after that is going to be Spider-Man. And then after that is, I believe, additional Universes Beyond, right?
Yes, there will be an additional Universes Beyond set.
Yeah, Return to Lorwyn got pushed back.
Yeah, by 2, which is just like, I don't need to say that. That's a definite bummer. That to push back already announced Magic sets to make room for this, but
yeah,
that's going to be beside the point slightly. It's just a bummer that it happened, of course.
Do you want to briefly give our initial thoughts on each of these sets?
Yeah, absolutely.
Aether Drift I am excited for. It is an artifact set. It is a vehicle set. It is cool. This is my jam. I like it. Not much more to say about it. I'm excited to see this set.
I don't like the set symbol.
The checkered flag? I've heard a couple other people say that.
It doesn't look right. I don't know why. I just can't get behind it. I think it's too many like harsh angles.
I wonder if they tried to do like a flaming wheel and then they were like, we can't get this past like Hot Wheels copyright.
Yeah, like even a wheel would have been fine, or like I was looking at the art for this set. The Magic the Gathering Twitter was kind of live tweeting the panel. It looked like it's gonna go Kaladesh into like Alara, like Esper, into like, so I'm wondering if it's like gonna be 3 artifact planes that the death races through.
Yeah, that could be neat. That could be neat.
I don't know, there's not a lot to speculate about. people were talking about the lore already. Like the prize is like, you know, the equipment planeswalker that they teased.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, ooh, does the winner get a planeswalker spark? And it's like, oh, that's why that's why Chandra's racing for Nissa. So
to get her spark back?
To get her a spark, yeah. I'm like, aw. You know, but that's about it.
Next is Tarir Dragonstorm. This is just more the clans of Tarir fighting against a threat to the multiverse, as it says on the website.
Yeah, I hope they don't bungle any return to upset planes. That's just my only fear. Everyone loves Tarir. Don't mess it up.
And then next is Final Fantasy. I have no attachment to Final Fantasy in any capacity. My only knowledge of it is Cloud and Sephiroth from Smash Bros. I've never touched a Final Fantasy game. I have no concept of it.
Yeah, I never have played Final Fantasy. I have friends who are really into it, and they're like, oh my gosh, Final Fantasy and Magic. I have had 2 separate friends who have told me they will never play Magic, go like, oh my gosh, there's Final Fantasy and Magic now? And I'm like, that's funny. But yeah, no, I don't really feel anything when they're like, ooh, Final Fantasy and Magic. It's like, okay, cool. Very lukewarm about that.
And the next is Edge of Eternities, which is a space opera. There's going to be starships and planets exploding, and Tezzeret is there.
Oh, dude, Tezzeret with his new Darksteel body in the art. That promo art is wicked. I am so excited to have another Tezzeret. I love Tezzeret so much. Yeah, no, new sets were announced. The backbone to all of this is going to be Foundations, which is going to be standard legal for 4 years.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
That's interesting. Yeah, so there's going to be a new set. It's like, if you ever played Hearthstone Standard, there was the core set that didn't really rotate, and then the other sets rotated around it. So now we have like a core set that's going to last like 5 years, and every set will rotate around it. Which means your standard cards will last longer, or a lot of them will. It actually makes me interested in getting into Paper Standard for the first time, I think, ever, really.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. Not a lot, but I've seen a decent amount of people, enough to be mentioned here, have a sort of take that, oh, this is going to make it so if Llanowar Elves is legal in Standard, they're going to like have to be very careful about what they print, or if Eternal Witness is legal in Standard for the next 4 years, you know, they can't print any board wipe. They have Starfall Invocation, for instance. That would be an Infinite Wrath loop with Eternal Witness. So like, oh, you got to be careful. 5 years? That's a lot of committing. I have played Hearthstone. It doesn't matter as much as you think, especially with the power level that it looks like Foundations is going to end up being. I think it's actually going to be really healthy in terms of like a new player getting into Magic, because you can just always buy Foundations and get into the set for the next half decade.
Yeah, and like if it's really a problem, like Eternal Witness combos with this really well, you can ban Eternal Witness, and then that thing will rotate before Eternal Witness rotates, and just unban Eternal Witness at that point.
That is totally a valid thing as well. At the end of the day, please don't like yuck it until we've actually played with it. I actually do not think it's going to matter as much as people are like naysay it will, because I've played Hearthstone for a long time, and the core set is the best part about Hearthstone by a mile.
Yeah, when they changed the core set, it was like, that's when I stopped playing Standard Hearthstone. Okay, so we gotta talk a little bit about, like, they are pushing Universes Beyond this coming year, right? Final Fantasy and Spider-Man in Standard, right? This will be like when you go to the game store and see people play regular Friday Night Magic Standard, They will be playing Spider-Man. They will be playing Sephiroth, right? It's not this, oh, in Commander sometimes you see someone playing a Doctor Who card and it's quirky. It's going to be like a main part of the game and potentially strong enough to show up in Modern and Pioneer and Legacy and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And also, they're doing more, less, like, Magic adjacent stuff as well. Like, I think SpongeBob is probably one of the furthest we've had that outside of Silver Borders. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's Silver Bordered stuff, but, like, SpongeBob is very different than, you know, Lord of the Rings, right? Like, it's not going to mesh aesthetically or tonally in any capacity with Magic.
Yeah. For me, I don't think SpongeBob is really a factor. It's the funniest one to point at and go like, look at it, they're ruining the game. That's a secret lair. It's the same as the Fortnite one. I imagine it's just going to be 5 reskins, a 6 maybe.
I think it's going to be mechanically unique.
If it's mechanically unique, it's still in a secret lair, which means we're going to get in-universe versions within a few months. That policy has not changed.
We still don't have the Lara Croft one, do we?
No, we don't. But it took us how long to get the Stranger Things ones? Like 7 months, something like that. So, you know, that's what I mean by a couple months, not like 2 or 3. But
okay.
a decent amount. But like, still, we will get in-universe versions of the SpongeBob secret lair. That policy's not changed. A lot of people have been really confused about like, oh, why are we not getting the in-universes beyond our ones? Because you promised that we would do that. That is only for reprints, for specifically secret lairs. But also, like, future cards as well. Like, if they wanted to reprint Necrons, they would have to reprint them in a future set with, like, the whole technology of equals SLD or equals UB number or whatever, like, referring to the other set numbers so they're the same card. It's really janky, and I don't like it. That's ultimately my main concern with this is the licensing. I think licensing is going to make reprinting awkward, where you have someone like playing Commander and they have the Necrons card in their deck, and then they have the reprinted Necrons card in the deck that's reskinned to be in Magic Universe, but it's different enough because it's in Magic Universe, like it creates actual skeletons instead of Necron tokens now that are artifact creatures, and so they run both of them in their deck even though they're the same card, and that's not legal, and then they get confused. Like, if the reprint policy is that, I'm really scared for what this is about to bring.
Yeah, I feel like that is an issue, right? I feel like a new player could very much get confused. Like with the secret lair ones, like the Stranger Things ones, it's a very specific set of cards. It's just a couple of cards. But the more of these they do, the more we're going to run into that. You're going to see a new player and you're going to be like, oh, no, sorry, these are the same card. And they're going to be like, this is a Necron and this is a robot. They're obviously different types,
exactly.
And they're different names, and they're different everything. What do you mean they're the same card?
Yeah, so that part of the licensing is very scary, the reprint aspect. Also, for Magic Online gamers, it took 7 months for us to get Fallout into Magic Online. So Legacy and Commander, for 7 months, was different than its paper counterpart. I mean, it kind of already is. In Magic the Gathering Online, there isn't every single card there, but even more so. Like, meta players like pre-war Formalware, which was in a lot of Legacy decks, in paper, could not be played on Magic the Gathering Online. And that was because of licensing. Daybreak Games had to go out of their way to license this property for themselves, because Wizards of the Coast can't cut them into the deal. I hope and pray to every god that Wizards of the Coast at least updated their licensing so that way their partners, Magic the Gathering Online, Magic the Gathering Arena, there's more in-house. But I hope that we get those cards immediately, because it would be horrible for Magic the Gathering Online if, like, oh yeah, we're getting Universes Beyond sets, but they won't be added until 5 months after their paper release because of licensing. I imagine that's not happening, but it's something that's crossed my mind.
That's my biggest problem with this, is like, ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy or Spider-Man. I would rather see unique, cool, new Magic things. You know, like, I got into the game because I think Tezzeret is cool, and Jace is cool, and Nissa and Chandra and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's why I got into the game. I didn't get into the game to, like, one day hope that I would see Yoda on a card, you know?
Yeah.
The fact that, like, one, they're just not doing, like, Lorwyn getting pushed back is so lame. Like, I wanted to see Lorwyn. I was excited about Lorwyn. I don't want to see Spider-Man. But then also, is Spider-Man going to be tremendously expensive because it's basically pseudo reserve list. And then that's like, price is already one of the biggest, most difficult barriers of entry for this game by like a wide margin. Adding an additional one of those with like a new double reserve list where like, oh, we don't know when or if anybody can print the One Ring again or Spider-Man again, is just like even worse. I already have to explain to new players like, yes, this card is just a mountain and island stapled together, and it is $600 because they promised never to print it again. And then they're gonna be like, why is Spider-Man $100? Because they legally can't print it again.
And when they do, it's going to be in universe, and that's going to cause confusion across new players being like, oh, well, why can't I run both these cards? They have different names. And yeah, like it's going to be a little bit problematic if Wizards of the Coast hasn't taken the proper precautions. I hope with this bold step that they did, but it's certainly a fear that they have not quelled quite yet. As for the more like actual textural stuff, like opinion, this is getting editorial now. I think Universes Beyond can be good. I definitely think that it's okay to have Universes Beyond in the game. That being said, I don't like Spider-Man. I don't like Marvel. I would rather it be Final Fantasy, and fantasy adjacent. I don't like sets on Earth. That's a personal opinion. Like someone else might disagree with me. And I don't want anyone yucking anyone else's yums. I would turn into the world's biggest hypocrite for a Bloodborne Universes Beyond set or something like that. Like, I will be the world's #1 hypocrite if that occurs. But, because like everyone has like a property that they kind of want to see in Magic. Not everyone. That's a bit of a broad statement.
I don't.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like a lot of people who naysay Universes Beyond immediately follow it up with, but if they added this one. So listen, some people like Universes Beyond. I like it as a new entry point for the game. I just don't think the split should be 50-50. That is my honest take. I really think.
Yeah, half the sets in the year are going to be not Magic IP. That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know.
50-50 is way too much. I would be I think even 80-20 might be a little too much, but I could accept it more than a 50-50 split. Like one set per year is a Universes Beyond set. Fine, I'll take it. And yeah, I'll be uploading a video, a more like actual long length video about my further thoughts, talking about every single argument about it.
Yeah, go subscribe to Elk to check out that video.
Yes, I will be releasing it within a week or so, not much longer.
Okay, those are all the new sets coming out. Was there any other news things to hit on?
No, that's about it. I think we can hop into the extra long question zone.
Big question zone this time. So if you want to submit a question for us to answer, please put question zone at the start of the question. You can leave it in the comments here. You can leave it, you can tweet at us. Also, I am sorry, I will try to reply and get to some questions that are on Spotify, but for whatever reason, I've lost access to the comment section on Spotify. It is just broken. It's really weird. I'm sorry to everybody who's asked questions there. I will try to reply to them, but I literally cannot pull them up for this episode.
What a convenient time that we decided to do a half question zone episode.
I haven't been able to look at the comments for like a week.
Wow.
It's been so long. They've like ruined it. I don't know what they're doing over there. All right. Anyway, enough harping on Spotify. I'm going to do some from 2 weeks ago from the How to Be an Archenemy video first. From /Spade. Question zone. Do you think damage-based removal is worth running? Having looked at a lot of red spells, I struggle to find it worth including damage spells because they feel overcosted for how much damage they deal.
Absolutely. So it's going to depend on your deck. Very much so. If you're mono red, what else are you playing? Like Wild Magic Surge Chaos Warp? Like, yeah, sure. But like you're going to need to put some amount of damage-based removal in your deck. In which case, I recommend Flame Slash. I recommend Ghost Fire Slice, even Lightning Bolt. There's a lot of 3-power things out there that's just like, yep, red swords to plowshares on your creature, you know? But
oh, interesting.
I definitely think that damage-based removal is totally okay to be running. It's not a bad thing to do, especially once again for mono red. Now Rakdos, you should be running Go for the Throat and etc. and stuff. Of course, you have options that might change that, like Judith Carnage Carnosaur. she's a 5-mana card that gives the relevant abilities. She gives your instants and sorceries lifelink. You want damage-based removal there sometimes, because it's Death Touch lifelink. Like, you're going to gain life off the spell you've just cast. Of course, people abuse that with End of the Festivities, which does 1 damage to each opponent, each creature, and each planeswalker they control, but that's besides the point. There are instances where damage-based removal can be good and the best option. And then there's some instances where, you have better options, and that's if you're playing black, if you're playing white. If you're playing Izzet, probably want some mix of bounce spells, counter spells, and maybe even some burn. I could totally see putting a couple cards that are like deal 4 damage to a creature. Like, that's a fine card to be playing. A Braid, another good instance of just like it can remove an artifact or a dork. Kill that Drannith Magistrate. Get out of the lock.
I've found that I don't play Lightning Bolt. I play a Braid because it has an alternative effect. I don't play Lightning Bolt because 3 it hits a lot of things, but not enough for me. I think 4 damage is like good enough that it covers most things. And one card that a lot of people forget about, if you're playing mono red, swap out some of those stinky old regular basics for snow-covered basics and play Skred.
Oh, I love Skred.
It's 1 red, deal a damage equal to the number of snow permanents you control. You have like 6 lands in play, it's double Lightning Bolt on a thing. It kills almost anything.
Yeah, there's some instances where I actually really like Lightning Bolt. The face mode of Lightning Bolt, like deal 3 damage to target opponent, has come up for me. Specifically, especially in Zerzoth, where I have damage triplers and damage multipliers. Like, if you have City on Fire, which triples all your damage in play, Fire Emancipation, same effect, suddenly your Lightning Bolt does 9 damage, which is a quarter of a player's life total. Very relevant. In addition to it just being like, I can bolt your Drannith Magistrate to unlock my commander. Stuff like that. In the end of the day, your removal should be tailored for your deck, and sometimes that means it's gotta be damage.
This next question is not... I'm not going to put a specific person because a bunch of people have asked similar questions. We've gotten multiple questions about silver border commanders, test print card commanders, just illegal commanders in general. What are your thoughts on using them? Do you use any, etc.?
Gosh, I want to build Elbrus the Blinding Blade so bad as like a commander.
Yeah.
It would be so cool to have Withengar.
Cool card.
Yeah, I love Elbrus. Elbrus is an equipment that when you hit someone, it's a 7-mana equipment that gives like +1/+0 or something.
It's so bad.
It is horrible, and it's equip 1, so it's 8 total mana to get it onto a creature and attack with it. And then when you deal combat damage, you can flip it over to a 13/13 demon that gets +13/+13 whenever a creature dies. Would I love this? Yeah. At the end of the day, though, if you want to have a Rule 0 conversation and be like, hey, listen, I want to play Elbrus, I'm always going to say yes. I don't know if you feel the same, but like, if you're playing something funny and you're like, this is my cool deck, please let me play it, I'll hear you out on it. Now, if it's like the Ozolith, like, and this is my Ozolith deck, and also it's like, I've decided that it's mono black as well, in addition to colorless, I'm gonna be like, listen, dude, just put the Ozolith in your deck and a couple tutors. It's okay. I think a very good strategy, if you want to play a silver bordered commander or play a non-legal commander in any sort of form, is you can have a backup commander and like a backup, sideboard swaps. So that way, if you still want to play that deck, you can just take out the cards that you can't legally, or you just take out the card that you can't legally play and the cards that synergize with it, and just stick in the 5 to 10 and the commander that would work in the deck, and then you can jam that deck. If you can do that, that's like aces, because not only can you like have a deck that you can play that you like with a Rule 0 conversation, but you can also have a deck that you can play even when someone says no. At the end of the day, just respect the Rule 0, and like if someone doesn't want to play against your deck because it's not legal, then you got to respect it. I don't have any personal deck like this. I know you play a lot of Secret Commander though, so I think you have some cool opinions about this.
I have hidden commanders, but the whole point of the hidden commander is that it's not in the command zone, so I would never put it in the command zone. That defeats the point of the whole hidden commander deck. I don't use any of these because I try to play with like random players as much as I can, and I try to play with like within the rules as much as I can, just to, I feel like I have like
it definitely
a better
eases
grasp
things
of the format.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I usually don't use these. I mean, if somebody occasionally was like, hey, I want to play my wacky Silver Border Commander, it's fine. I'll usually say yes. My problem is when it's like a tedious one. Like if you're like, oh, I want Space Bellerin in my command zone, I will probably say no. Like I'm sorry, it's just it's annoying. Like the card is just annoying, right? I don't want to have to assume or track every quadrant that I put all of my cards in. It's so annoying. Like so that's my problem with silver border cards is there's a lot of them that are like pretty much fine. They're just kind of wacky. But then there's a lot of them that are just obnoxious. And if it's like going to cause the game to go like an extra hour for no good reason, I don't know if I'm going to say yes, to be honest.
Yeah, and you're totally within your right to do so, right? Exactly. Like, you got to be ready to hear a lot of no if you're going to build a deck like that, or at least have a backup plan. Like I mentioned, have some of those swaps in place to make the deck legal if you need it.
Okay, next question is, what do y'all think about fogs? How many should you run? This is specifically for a deck that gets archenemy status pretty regularly, says this commenter.
I love fogs. I don't know about you. Are you an Aetherize fan?
No.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about this. I play a lot of fogs in my decks. Not like a lot of fogs in one deck, but I play a lot of fogs across all my decks. I mean, in white you can count Teferi's Protection, but like, come on, that card's just good. So a little bit hard.
Yeah, I play Teferi's Protection and like Psych Rift.
Yeah.
Which are like kind of fogs, but they're also way more than just fogs. But like, do I play any vanilla like fog effects? Not really. Like if I'm playing a Sunforger deck where it's like part of my tutor package,
yeah,
sure, I'll throw a fog in there because it's part of my toolbox.
I'll count Dawn Charm in the fog department. By the way, I definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, I'll run a Dawn Charm in a Sunforger deck, but like generally,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. For the longest time in Sephara, I had Sephara as my like flying sort of like pillow 40 kind of deck. It has like a Voltron aggressive plan, and then it keeps back indestructible blockers. The thing is that the indestructible blockers I keep back can get trampled over, which is really a headache. So while I'm killing the green player, I for a while was running Dawn Charm because it's nice to have that tempo of like I swing out with my Voltron commander, you attack me with your tramplers, I fog your combat step, I hit you again with my commander, now with double strike I win that exchange, right? So in these sort of tempo-y sort of situations, I think fogs actually serve a very great purpose in a deck. I think I don't think you need many fogs. I think you maybe need one or two, and they should have alternative modes most of the time. I think a Spore Frog and Marin is always just a good choice. It ups your experience counters because Marin, whenever your creature you control dies.
Oh yeah, if you have like a repeatable fog, that's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, she gets an experience counter. You can always bring back that Spore Frog to keep sacking it to fog a combat damage step. Very strong sort of play pattern there. For me, my fog of choice is Blessed Respite. It's 1 in a green. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library and then prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it's mill protection, graveyard hate, and a fog all in one, which is just great. And you can also like recurse if you have like a tutor in hand, you can like put something back into your library to tutor for it. You know, stuff like that. There's a lot of play with that card, and I found that it's actually very handy. There's also one-sided fogs. What comes to mind is Obscuring Haze, I think it's called. When you have your commander, it's free, and then all creatures your opponents control don't deal combat damage. That's really good in like a Death Touch deck, where like someone's attacking you, they have first strike, you fog, and then you assign your Death Touch combat blockers. Their creature does nothing to yours does it to them. You know, there's a lot of play with fogs, and you need to really analyze what kind of deck you are. So in the terms of the arch enemy deck, I just mentioned Sephara. That's a deck I ran a fog in for a very long time. I just recently cut it just because there's so many other options that I need to be running now. I think I cut it for the instant speed board clear in white now with the protection spell bonus, the spree card.
Oh, that card's nuts. Yeah. High Noon, yeah. I think.
Not High Noon. High Noon's
that's
the rule.
I'll put it on screen. I'll put it on screen. Final Showdown.
Final Showdown. Yes, that card. That card is incredible in my deck, and yeah, you know, it's slightly better than Dawn Charm, so I think.
I don't play like any fogs. I don't get the point of fogs. So in my mind, what am I using a fog? It buys me a turn if someone swings into me So someone swings into me, it buys me a turn. Okay. What then, right? If I don't have the ability to crack back and take them out, then they're just going to swing at me next turn, and then I'm in the same position, but I no longer have a fog.
Yeah, so that's a trinket mage problem because you build decks without creatures in them.
No, but like, if they're swinging at me, if I had a board full of creatures, why are they swinging at me? In which case, do I need the fog? No, because they're not swinging at me. And then, if I don't have a board, wouldn't I rather have a board wipe rather than a fog?
When I have a fog do the thing, you feel like an evil genius. It is the best thing in the world.
But what do you do after the fog? That's my question.
You
right?
kill them. Or you recur the fog.
What is this situation where I have 10 billion damage on board, and then somehow someone else attacks me for lethal, which I fog and then swing in at them and kill them next turn? Why didn't I kill them last turn? What is this? I swung all out at someone else just to leave myself open so I could fog them, then swing. That's so niche.
Yeah,
it's like such a specific situation.
It counters Crater Hoof Behemoth in these sort of like big alpha strike turns. Like, there's another thing about this as well, is you have two other opponents. So when someone attacks out and you fog them, you can sort of corral the attackers to the person who attacked if they attacked poorly. But also, on top of all this, every time something, like, I've played a game of Magic, it feels like there's a coin flip at the end of it where someone's like, oh, if I had one more turn. And it's like, I feel the same way sometimes. I've had a card rotting in my hand. I'm like, if this was my fog, I would have won this game. They do have a
about
place.
Like any card ever. If this was my Cycrypt, I would have won the game.
Yeah, but like for me, I've played Aetherize before in a deck to great success. This was a Sea Monsters deck with Kinesos, Priest of Thassa. He has a 4-mana activated ability to put the top card of your library into play if it's a sea monster. You could technically also get to scry one if it isn't. But Kinesos, that 4-mana activated ability, you can hold it up so you can pass the turn, and you basically have Aetherize as settle the wreckage in that case, because like it's a good rattle. And I count Aetherize as a fog, returning all attackers to their owner's hand.
Yeah, it's basically a fog. I don't know. I mean, I play Take the Bait in some decks, but I find Take the Bait to be significantly more powerful than just a fog.
Oh yeah, don't run just fog in your deck. That is not my argument here. I'm saying a fog effect in your deck, maybe one or two, actually pretty primo. It's very nice to have that extra turn or two to like look at a few extra cards, especially with card draw. You get to look at that fog as I get to draw a couple extra cards this game.
Well, hold up. Sorry. When you say a fog effect or two, do you mean it's an effect on something that you have in addition to it being a fog, or do you play one copy of fog?
I don't play one copy of fog in basically any deck. All of my fogs, I try to have bonus utility. Now, keep in mind, there are some decks where just a fog can actually see some play, and that's like a tempo deck.
There's certain decks where, it's like not bad. You're playing whatever, Questing Beast or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the long and short of it, is like, do you have synergy with just fog? Then I wouldn't run just fog. It's okay to add an extra 100% mana to that one drop for a little added utility to have it not be dead. Always have a buyout. A Braid, if you've never seen Artifact, it always deals 3 to a creature.
Okay. I would say don't play anything that is just a fog effect. Don't play fog, don't play darkness.
That is a fair and valid criticism.
Like, play things like Take the Bait that like wins games by itself. Oh my god, I won so many games with somebody swinging lethal at me, and it's like, nope, you swing lethal at them and then I board wipe you or whatever else,
Yeah.
It's like 100 times better than a fog.
Yeah.
All right, that fog discussion was a little longer than I anticipated.
It's okay. There's a bit where we kind of misunderstood each other that could probably get cut, maybe.
Cad on Uno. How do I get my play group to play more removal? It feels like most people hate having things removed, even when it's objectively correct or free value, and I'm always the one having to play table police, or we lose to some combo, or I snowball and win.
Yeah, I think on one hand, part of me wants to say, just keep snowballing and winning.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like, that's like one part of me for sure, is like, listen, you just got to teach them tough love. Like, just keep snowballing and winning. But honestly, I think you could just talk to them. You can just talk to them and you could be like, hey guys, listen, do you want to try out a couple games where you have a few like on theme synergistic removal pieces in your deck? I can help you, give you some suggestions, and we can try out a couple games like that and we can see how you guys feel about it. And then you play those games and then hopefully they see, oh wow, interacting with my opponents is actually really cool. And this theme, like I'm a tokens deck and this removal spell has Convoke. I don't entirely feel like I'm sacrificing a slot in my deck for a non-synergistic piece, right? That's like, wow, that's going to be magic for some players, I feel. You know what I mean? I think there's a gentler method than just crush your table constantly that can be applied here, even though that is a really funny answer to give.
I mean, it obviously depends on your playgroup. When I first started playing with my friends in undergrad, that was what I did. I was like, damn, their decks suck. I'm just going to play the most, like, ignorant, disrespectful green pile I can. I played I think it was just mono green Omnath, and all I did, there was no removal in this deck. The entire deck was just ramp, 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 big thing, 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 and I won like 20 games in a row, and then somebody was like, whoa, we should board wipe him or something.
We should kill this dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, let's go beat him with hammers. And then they did that, and then I later took apart that deck, and I was like, all right, now we can play the game because we know we've adjusted. I don't know. I won a lot of games with that Omnath deck. It was, for a while, it was crushing.
At the end of the day, you just gotta like tell them, and hopefully they're receptive. I mean, you all want to have fun. Teach them in a way that will make them have fun. Teach them to have fun with removal, and they will play removal. That's my honest answer. It's pretty simple there.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have a whole section of my upcoming video that will be about how removal makes games significantly more fun. Question zone. Since you are all EDH hipsters to an extent, what popular commanders make you groan because they're overplayed? And what are more interesting alternatives?
Man, it's like, I can think of like several elf ball commanders where it's like elves can be so cool, but like I don't want to see the 15 millionth Lathril player or the 20 millionth Voha player. Like, show me Abomination of Llanowar in your command zone or something. Something that makes me like laugh. You know? That's the major thing that comes to mind personally. Korvold is my sacrifice deck. Oh my gosh.
For me, it's the Dragon. Oh my goodness. This card is so lame. And it's not just that this like is just 5 color dragons, it's generically good, it ramps all your dudes, blah blah blah. Like, it's boring on that front. Every single time I've run up against someone playing the Dragon, they hype up their deck like crazy. They're like, this deck is not for making friends. This is where I crush the table. This is where I dragon all over the place. And then I'm like, cool, board wipe. And then they're like,
all sorcery speed dragons all the time. There's no counter spells, nothing. It's just like, I play my big dumb dragon, tap out for it. You remove it, I'm upset.
It's such a waste of using 5 colors. If you want to play dragons, let me tell you a cool dragon commander that I played. This is one of the few times I built an actual, like, typal deck. Zarillin of the Claw. Oh my god, this card is sweet.
Oh, that's the mono red one, right?
Oh yeah, 3 red for a 3/4. I need to pull up the Oracle text. It's a 3/4 Lizard Shaman. It's no longer a Vinishinu. You can pay red 1, tap, search your library for a dragon permanent card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. It gains haste until end of turn, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step.
Oh, that's sick. You get like Sundial the Infinite stuff too. That's so much fun.
If you blink it or do like some shenanigans like that, you get to keep the dragon forever. And then you have this wide, even though you're mono red, you have this big toolbox of different dragons that destroy artifacts, dragons that snipe creatures, dragons that make treasures. You have all these different utilities you can play, and you just get to like dig through your big box of dragons and go, what am I gonna grab? And one of my favorite finishers in the deck is you get to play Dragon Tyrant. It's like a 6/6 with flying and double strike and trample, and it has fire breathing. And when you just have a lot of red mana and you cheat into play and you're like, oh, here's my 15/15 flying double strike trample, boom, 30 you in the air. It's just so cool.
As someone who's played a decent amount of dragons recently, I 100% agree with this. This is really funny. Well, I haven't played it recently, but I built decks with dragons in them. Terror of Mount Velis. Oh, all your dragons get, or all your creatures get double strike on ETB. Tutoring that mid combat. Love that.
Pack Shooter asks, do you guys actually enjoy editing other people's decks? I know you get asked constantly to improve someone else's deck or for deck building advice. Hearing you guys talk about your own decks makes it very clear that you care about personal expression through deck building, and that just made me wonder how it could be a slog at times to go through rather uniform lists of top 100 EDH rec commanders.
I want you to start with this. For context, I love this question. This is a really good one. Me and Con both did a deck review stream today, and we do one do you do one once a month or weekly?
No. Today's stream was not a deck review stream. I was brewing up decks for me.
Oh, I see. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. Next week will be patron deck reviews.
I see. So do you do that weekly or monthly?
So every month on my Patreon, patrons will submit decks to me, and then I go through all of them and do like, I suggested you cut these 5 cards and you add these 5 cards in. And I do that every month. And the reason that it's a Patreon bonus is because I like giving people suggestions. So I do enjoy editing other people's decks. That's why I made it like a whole thing. It's really fun, and I mean, I've been very lucky, I think, that the deck lists my patrons have submitted are not generic or boring. I think everybody submitted something pretty interesting, pretty cool, and some people have some really wacky decks that make those 5 cuts very difficult. And I appreciate all the creativity. I think it's pretty rare to actually find someone who is, because once you get kind of invested in the game and you're like listening to the podcast, joining a Patreon, etc., once you get kind of invested in that, you're probably not going to be doing the most generic elf ball deck you could possibly do, you know? It's pretty rare that you find that. I mean, I know plenty of people that are like well invested in the game and they're just like, I love goblins, and that's all, like, that's good. Like, I'm not hating on that. If you just love goblins, that's great. They're great. But I feel like a lot of people are a bit more experimental once they get into the game. So I don't run into too many just like very uniform, boring decks.
Yeah. For me, it's very similar. I love giving people advice and showing how smart I am. No, in a more serious sense, I like looking at someone else's deck list, and it's like a puzzle where it's like, is there anything here with my Magic knowledge that they might have overlooked that, you know, like, oh, maybe this card is a little bit worse than this card, say, that I know about, or this one has some synergy with this card, but if I recommend this card, it has synergy with these 3 cards, and that's more synergy for the pile. I do deck review streams weekly on Sunday. For me, it's a more laissez-faire sort of deck building stream. I have people come into the chat, and I make a temporary Discord channel in the Discord, and people will send in their decks, and then I'll go ahead and just scroll through them on stream, and, like, you know, chat will shout one out, or I'll find one that's interesting. I'll just review the ones that seem interesting to me. I have that luxury because it's not like a Patreon sort of deal. And I'll actually sit there for up to, you know, from anywhere from 10 to, I've sat for 30 minutes with a deck that's really cool or interesting. And it's sort of like an open forum with chat, because I also don't assume that I know how to build and play your deck better than you do, right? Like, I've never played Volrath, but this chatter who's been playing Volrath for like 3 years, oh man, they are going to have some heater suggestions. This is a live actual like piece of advice or live actual example of something that's happened to me today. We had a Volrath deck. Volrath is a 5 mana 7/5, and it has an activated ability where you can turn it into a copy of another creature you control, but it has that ability. Can copy cards like Ushalon, which is 3 and a black for a star 4, and it can exile a card from an opponent's graveyard, and you make a token copy of it. Because of Lairs, you just get infinite 7/5s, or not infinite, but you get a ton of 7/5s with pay 1. Make this into a copy of another creature, Uchalons, when that happens. So the entire deck is just trying to copy Volrath as much as possible to have an army of 7/5s that can copy any creature with a counter on it, which is sick. And then I was like, you could run this card and this card maybe. And then someone in chat rapid fire gave me like 5 or 6 godly suggestions because they play Volrath, which is like I love doing this, like giving a deck a platform, so to speak. And then like I give my suggestions, I take some suggestions from chat. It's a lot of fun. It's incredible to watch like a bunch of minds at work, hive mind, farming a deck into the best part it can be.
I think both of us do deck reviews in like a very different way because like for you it's just whatever catches your eye and you're like, well, let's talk about this deck. It looks interesting. Yeah, it's cool. If you want to, see Elk do that, you should follow him on Twitch. That's where he streams those. You should join his Discord. Send me a link to that so I can put it in the description here.
Yeah.
If you want to force me to look at your Dragon deck, you can do that as well on Patreon. And I will begrudgingly give you 5 better dragons to put in. All right, question zone from Cookies and Milk 6421. How do you go about finishing your deck building process? I've always been a brewer at heart since my modern days, but I find it particularly hard to cut cards in Commander while keeping my idea for the deck intact. I have just under a dozen decks on hold at the moment because I'm struggling to slim them down to any amount. Advice would be big.
Yeah, so the Commander's a game, believe it or not, and I think those are supposed to be fun. So if there's a card in a deck where you are like, I need this to have fun with this deck, if it is gone, all the joy is gone, and I will hang my head in shame. That's not the card you cut, no matter how bad it is. What you should be doing is looking very carefully at how you can compact your value. Is there a removal spell and a protection spell that is better served in one? So, for example, Valorous Stance can destroy a creature with power or rather, I think it's toughness 4 or less, or 4 or more, and it can also give a creature indestructible. That's a protection spell and a removal spell all in one. So maybe there's a way you can compact the value, so to speak. Maybe there's cards that you're not so attached to that only synergize with one other piece in your deck. Those are the first cards I typically cut. Is like, does this have a broad amount of synergy, or is it a very narrow synergy with something that happens 1 in every 5 games? In which case, that's the card I cut. It's not compact enough. How I finish my deck building process, normally I'll just check EDHREC to see if I am a hipster or not. I'll compare my deck to what people averagely put into the commander I'm building, and then I'll be like, all right, I'm unique, and then I'll call it a day. That's also just a good thing, just like, if like, oh, I glossed over adding this blatant synergy that should 100% be in the deck, stuff like that. But in general, try to compact things. Run modal cards instead of a removal spell, a protection spell, etc. Like, try to compact those things into one card, is my opinion on like cuts and whatnot.
I think it comes down to testing. Ultimately, You're going to be between 2 cards, like, oh, which one of these is better? Just pick one and try it out. And if it feels bad, swap it for the other one.
Have you ever built the perfect deck first try, or is it like all been iteration? For me, it's all been iteration. I've never hit the nail on the head first go around.
All my decks are perfect.
Yeah, all right, buddy. All right.
No, every single deck, you have to tune and adjust in some capacity. It's almost impossible to get it on the first go. The Foxglove deck that I talked about, I don't know if you guys noticed it when you were reviewing it. There is no spot removal outside of counterspells.
Yeah.
I could not beat a resolved artifact. I just forgot to put like Beast Within a Generous Gift to the deck. It was terrible. Like, I do stuff like that all the time because I'm too like focused on like, I don't know, whatever the hell the deck, whatever stupid thing the deck is trying to do, and then sometimes you forget about the other stuff. But yeah, just pick some things that you're deciding between, and if it's bad, swap it for the other things. Make a maybe board. I think
maybe boards are definitely huge.
Last one is not a specific question zone question, just in general, something people have asked a lot. People have wondered if we are going to be doing some gameplay. Us, Snail, and Mystery Fourth Guest as a commander pod. And the truth is,
You ever think about it?
Yeah.
It could happen, like we could see it. Snails expressed interest. We're definitely up to the idea. It's just like finding a second day of the week or what have you. Finding guests to appear on the gameplay show, that sort of stuff. Well, even down to like editing style. Like, do we want to hyper edit it? Do we want to like voice over it, like MTG Mudsta style? Like, there's a lot of places you can take this. And there's merits and downsides to all of them. But
Yeah, and we have some people that we've been thinking about as like just an additional fourth guest for this podcast, and then that can also naturally, be tied into some sort of gameplay. So it is something we're thinking about. It is something we want to do eventually.
Eventually, yeah. We're still working out the logistics, but
that's the problem. Is like ultimately like we're all kind of busy, and then the guest is also just as busy.
Yeah, I would call it 80-20. 80% chance we'll see it maybe in the future, sometime soon. TM. 20% it'll never happen, and we don't know what universe we're living in. So, but we're talking about it. There are talks.
Yeah, there are talks. There's potential names.
Let it be known that if it happens, you will know.
Yes, it'll be. We'll make sure we announce it in some capacity. Follow us on socials, and here this will be the end.
Yes, follow my Twitter.
Hit the bell.
I just hit 500 Twitter followers. I'm blowing up.
Yeah, and you gave away like a Lamborghini for the 500th one, right?
No, I gave away my YouTube channel. It's not mine anymore.
Oh, damn. Okay, we should. I think we're just both tired and delirious. We should probably wrap this up.
This is it. I'm stopping it.
Okay.